I am a 26-year-old male, and I have been with my girlfriend, a 24-year-old female, for about 7 or 8 months. Our relationship is great in every way. We have had zero real problems, and we are very compatible. At first glance, she is a very sweet, innocent, extremely intelligent, and very beautiful girl who comes from a good family. However, one thing that bugs me a little bit is her actions in past relationships. I'm from a small country town, and she was born and raised in a big city where we both live now. I've been here about 9 months, and maybe I'm just not used to the big city life and how things are here, so I'm hoping you guys can tell me I've nothing to worry about. I'll give you one story for example. So we were together about a month, and the conversation came up about our ex-partners. She told me that about a year ago, she and her ex-boyfriend, who we'll call A, had broken up. She said that he was a good person and had potential, but he was very insecure about her. Most men would consider her to be very physically attractive, probably an 8 or 9. I'm very lucky. He would often fear that she would cheat, which caused a lot of stress in the relationship. Eventually, he was the one who ended up cheating. She caught him driving with another girl. She said it was because of his own insecurity, but that she didn't believe he was a bad person because of it. The relationship just had to end. Anyway, I thought not much of it. But as time went on, and as I got to know her better, parts of the story started to change. The way she talked about A changed its tone, and extra bits of information started to come to light. One key person that came into the story was her boss from her old job, who we'll call B. We were going on our first trip out of town together about 2 months in, and she was telling me about her old boss from work, whom she described as mentally abusive and manipulative. He was about 10 to 15 years older than her, and she was 21 at the time. He used to flirt with her in the office and would treat her badly if she wasn't at least acting like she was flirting back. They would sometimes have to drive out of the office because of the nature of their work, and while they were driving, he would put his hand on her leg, even though she had told him not to and that she had a boyfriend. This is what she told me at the time. B didn't care and would continue to do similar things. I grew up in a society where big age gaps in relationships are quite frowned upon, and I've always been brought up to be very respectful of women especially, so hearing this story made me quite uncomfortable, especially because she is someone I really care about. But I didn't really express my feelings. I just let her talk, and I listened. Apparently, this is quite common in the industry that she works in. Older guys with lots of money, her boss was easily making a 7-figure salary, being manipulative of younger girls. My first reaction was that I thought it was a little weird that she didn't stand up for herself at the time, but who am I to say I'd do differently in that situation? She had just graduated college, and this was her first ever serious job, so she was young and naive, I thought. She wasn't really doing anything wrong at the end of the day. She still talked about A in the same manner as before at this stage, like he was a good person at heart but just made some mistakes. Anyway, time went on and more things started to come out. We were driving to our friend's birthday party one evening after I had just met her parents for the first time, and as we were parking the car, she told me that she thinks I'm a very good person and could never see me doing wrong in a relationship, but she said she has to let me know of something she did wrong in her past so that her conscience could be clear. She told me that one of the reasons that her and A's relationship had broken down was because at one stage something actually happened between her and her boss, B. A became very insecure about it, especially because of the fact that B was making more than 10 times more money than A, and he feared that's maybe why she did something. They ended up breaking up for a while and eventually getting back together, only to fully break up a few months later when she caught him driving with the other girl, the one I mentioned above. She explained that she was young and naive and that she felt like she couldn't progress in the company if B wasn't on her side, so she gave in. At the time, I didn't know to what extent things had happened. I just knew she had gotten with somebody else during the relationship and it sent things downhill. I mean, B forcing a kiss onto her after work or drunk at a Christmas party is very different to her soberly driving to his house to have sex with him, so it was very hard for me to judge her actions at the time without knowing, but I also felt it wasn't right for me to ask because I could tell, or thought I could, by the way she was acting that she was embarrassed about it. I was supportive about it and told her it's okay. She's learned her lesson, and I can tell that she's an innocent person who wouldn't have had bad intent.
Anyway, a few months go by and not much is mentioned about the whole thing. As far as I know at this stage, her only sexual partners have been the 2 boyfriends she's had before me. She has always been quite innocent sexually up until this point. As she starts to open up more, she tells me more about her wild sexual side and things she used to do. I was never told with whom. I was also told that she has had over 20 sexual partners, but doesn't fully remember the real number. As someone who grew up in a small town, this number is crazy to me, laugh out loud. But I try not to be judgmental. She also mentioned that she's been with a few guys over 10 years older than her while she was in her early 20s and late teens, which again made me kind of uncomfortable to hear if I'm being completely honest. But I try not to judge again. I mean, when I really think about it, I don't mind too much. We've had some very fun sex and I wouldn't want to be with someone completely inexperienced. I just had never seen this side to her and it's something I've never heard of before. The only thing that actually grossed me out a bit was one night when she told me that it's crazy that she's never picked up an STD because she's never been careful about using condoms or letting guys finish inside of her. I was quiet when she mentioned this, but it definitely was not something I enjoyed hearing, laugh out loud. I know this may not be relevant, but I think it paints the picture a little bit better. Anyway, time goes on and I try not to think much about any of it because it's really a great relationship, but it starts to bug me again because when she would bring up the whole situation with A and B, her tone started to change in the way she talked about them. She also started becoming very obsessed with making money and work. She would tell me that she couldn't be with a guy that doesn't make a lot of money. And while I do make decent money, I'm not a materialistic person at all. And honestly, I don't want her to only be with me for that. Also, because of her line of work, she'll likely make much more than me in like 10 years from now. She would also tell me that it's important for her to be looking as attractive as possible in work because it makes men want to do more deals with her, which is fair, I guess, but it's not something she had said before. She would start telling me all of the great financial and investing advice that her old boss B would tell her, which, to be frank, was nothing I couldn't learn from spending about 15 minutes on YouTube. By the way, she's in a different company now, but her current company works closely with B's company, and I know that sometimes her and B have to interact. As I get to know her better and as things become more serious, she starts to talk about A in a much more negative light, saying he was manipulative and a bad person. I would almost defend A and say it would be hard for me not to feel a little weird if I was in his shoes at the time, based off the things she has told me before. She then tells me one day more or less exactly what happened because I said, I can't really judge the situation without knowing. She had been with A about a year at this stage. It was her work Christmas party, and she didn't want to go. A encouraged her and said it would probably be fun to go to, so she went. Apparently, she got quite drunk, and B said he'd get her some food to sober her up and then drive her to her apartment. When they went to the car, what he actually did was drive her to his house. She then went inside with him, and they had sex. The details were spared, but she said she didn't want to do it and told him afterward that this was really bad because she has a boyfriend. She then broke up with A without telling him what had happened. A couple of months go by and they get back together, but she tells him why she actually broke up with him. This is when all of his insecurities started, which makes total sense. But what is weird about it was that after this, her tone changes even further to the point where she is saying that B was a good person at heart but just made some mistakes and that A was manipulating her all along. It makes no sense to me at all. What am I missing? I have tried to tell her that I'm not sure I agree based on what she has told me before, but she gets very defensive about B. At this stage, I'm not even sure why she keeps bringing it up. So when she talk about it, I'd ask questions. And the more I ask, the more confusing it gets. One day she told me that B called her that day, this was about 2 months ago, and they spoke on the phone for about a half hour about some deal that their companies were doing together. He also always personally emails her for work opportunities. A bit weird, but fair enough, she has to work with him. But then she tells me that B often texts her things like, hey, how's life with you these days, and similar things. He also has her on Instagram and would sometimes send her random videos and would heart eyes react to her stories. Very weird, even weirder considering his age. I can see from her replies to him, which she shows me, that she really does not play into it at all, but it's pretty clear to me what his intentions are, which I tell her, but she doesn't agree. She says B is not a bad guy, he's just a little lost and he actually cares about her. According to her, B has no ulterior motives with her. She then would show me pictures of the two of them when they used to work together. Even though he looked like he could be her dad, one could describe them as cute selfies of two people who were clearly friendly with each other if you didn't know the context. Another day, I overheard her talking on the phone with her friend from work, who was on loudspeaker. Her friend was asking about the whole B situation because she was in a similar situation herself. My girlfriend mentioned something about it being fun to have that much power over her boss. A little weird, to be honest. Anyway, recently enough, she told me that she never wants to talk about B with me anymore because it ruined her last relationship and she doesn't want it to ruin this one because, in her words, it's the best one she's ever had. She also said, without my suggestion, that she'll show me any time that B texts her or contacts her at all. But I'm still confused as to why she talks about B so positively and A so negatively. For example, I was helping her move apartment about 3 weeks ago. I was in the apartment that she was moving from on my own for a full day while she was working, and I accidentally knocked over a box that had her diary entries on it. I would never want to invade her privacy and snoop on these things, but I couldn't help but notice what one of them said. It seemed like a letter to her ex-boyfriend A about how her life was going. It honestly seemed very civil and nice and friendly, which is weird given how she talks to me about him now. But one thing that kind of weirded me out was that she mentioned in the letter that she still wears his underwear, and she does have a pair of men's underwear that she wears around the house a lot. But she always told me that they belonged to her dad. Now that I think about it, when she first told me that they belonged to her dad, she seemed a little unsure. Either way, weird.
My question to you guys is this something I should even worry about? None of it makes sense to me, and the way she talks about it kind of weirds me out a little. We've also been talking about moving to another city together, which means living together for the first time, so things could get very serious very soon. Other than all of this, I could really see myself with her forever. What I really want to know is, am I completely ignoring red flags because every single other aspect of the relationship is so good? Too long, didn't read. I have a great relationship with my girlfriend in every way. But as time went on, I have learned that she cheated on her ex with her old boss, who she's still in semi-regular contact with. Her story about it has changed, her story about her past sexual partners has changed, and I recently found out that she still wears her ex's underwear around the house. Am I ignoring red flags because everything else is so good?